They tend to not warn you, and they tend to stay still until you step on them, and then they strike. So that was fun. On the bottom left is a jackal, and on the bottom right is a male kudu. On the top left is also a kudu, and on the bottom left is a water buck, and the top right is the blessbok. All those are different types of antelope species, but they look very different. There's small similarities between some of them, but there are also slight differences with the stripes and the patterns. On the bottom right is a vervet monkey. They tend to be very cute. This particular picture actually was from my time with my mother in Tanzania for the leopard, and then on the right is the cheetah in Kenya and the Masai Mara. As I said, the leopard tends to stay in the tree and be solitary for most of the time, and then the cheetah is more on the ground. There you can see a lot more easily the tear markings on the face. Also, for our time in Tanzania, we were able to go in the field and touch an actual rhino, which is on the top left. This is a wild rhino, and I suggest you do not do this at home. But the rhinos there in that particular area were protected by rangers, and so they had guns and they had surveillance on them 24/7 all the time because of how endangered they were in that particular region. We were able to walk right up to them because the rangers know how they behave in certain situations and told us that it's okay because of their mood at the moment. At the time, they did get a little aggravated with the group and started to snort and walk a little angrily towards us, which was also the second scariest moment of my life. But nonetheless, it was fantastic and amazing to see and touch. The top right is the most rare species of rhino currently on Earth. It's called the northern white rhino. They are similar to looking to southern white rhinos, but at one point it was estimated recently that there were only 4 left in the world. Bottom left is one of Jane Goodall's chimps that we were lucky enough to see one day, and it was amazing being able to see that, especially to see an idol of mine's work come to play right in front of my eyes. The bottom right is a only probably about 2-week-old female giraffe. And some of these shots were from Tanzania and Kenya. The top left is a hartebeest because of the shape of its horns. Sometimes when it looks directly at you, it will look like the shape of a heart. Bottom left is a hyena. And the top right is a hippo, and then the bottom right are baboons. The hippo, also in that photo, is doing the more dominant pose of opening its mouth. And now, this is some of the more important stuff I would like to talk to you about today that I hope you can take in, is the current poaching that's going on in Africa at the moment. Following of these are excerpts from Jeff Corwin's book, 100 Heartbeats, The Race to Save Earth's Most Endangered Species. As it says for his first quote, according to the IUCN, the Asian elephant, Elephas maximus, is endangered, and the African bush elephant, Loxodonta africana, is listed as near threatened. Today there's a large problem with elephants in Central, North, East, and West Africa. And then Richard G. Ruggiero, PhD of the USFWS Division of International Conservation, has witnessed the elephant's decline in horrifying detail, which is the next quote. I've seen a cow elephant that's been killed, her trunk and her face cut off, lying in about 3 inches of liquid, which is a combination of body fluids and blood. And standing in that pool is her 2-year-old calf. Even though her mama is bloated and reeking of death, she doesn't want to leave. She'll stay and starve to death, or the lions will get her. And that's the sad truth that happens today with elephants. Black rhinos haven't been as successful as evading poachers. Their population of 4,240 is down from close to 70,000 in the late 1960s, which is a 94% drop. With the rhinos at Cariega, they did a lot of research, and they also had poaching on their reserve of the actual rhinos. But this is a quote from their website that says, since 2006, there have been over 2,000 rhinos lost to poaching in South Africa. In 2008, the number shot up to 83, from 13 in 2007. By 2010, the figure had soared to 333, followed by 448 in 2011, and 668 in 2012. During 2013, a devastating 1,004 were needlessly butchered for their horns. Over 90% of the surviving rhinos are now in South Africa, as the populations elsewhere in Africa and Asia have been decimated. And that is the cold hard truth for rhinos. It's for the numbers in Kruger National Park, that's about 3 rhinos a day that are killed a year. In about 10 years, if that number continues, there could possibly be no more rhinos. At the Kruger Game Reserve, as I said, 3 rhinos were poached about 2 years ago, and one of them was named Tondi, and she happened to survive the ordeal. That is a photo of what happened to her horn, and poachers cut her horn so deep it will never grow again. Fortunately today, 2 years later, is a photo I took of her with her horn completely healed and doing amazingly better. She is one of the few success stories of a rhino surviving poaching. It doesn't happen very often, but the effects are astounding. 2 male rhinos were also poached, but they unfortunately died during the process 2 years ago. And these are photos of what rhinos should look like today. The black rhino on top has its horns at Kruger, and they do not cut down their horns because they're too hard to find, and it's too hard for poachers normally to gain access to them. But the southern white rhinos, as in the bottom, they have to cut down their horn because of the poaching. Elephants. So the problem with poaching in elephants today is that elephants' tusks are essentially a modified tooth. The ivory is a very rare form that can't be found anywhere else, so that's what makes its value. Elephants usually live up to around 60 to 70 years old, and there's that myth of the elephant graveyard, because when elephants go to die, it's usually because they've worn out their last set of teeth, and then they go to a place that's comfortable for them, and it's usually the same area as other elephants. So they tend to starve to death is their natural way of when they do pass, and that's just the simple process, because they go through 3 sets of teeth in their lifetime, and eventually their last set wears out. The males are typically larger, and the females are the head of the herd and are called the matriarch. They tend to lead the entire pack and memorize the water routes and everything, so that is why they are called the matriarch, because they tend to have skill in knowing all the information from many years ago. As I said, the biggest problems for elephants are in North, Central, East, and West Africa. It's not as big of a problem in South Africa right now, but it's slowly starting to become a problem. For one example, I'm not sure if some of you have heard of this, but there was an article recently that showed these few men poisoned a watering hole with cyanide to try and kill elephants for their ivory. And for that, they not only killed elephants, but it was a water source, so anything that drank from the water would then proceed to be killed as well. Today, there's an estimated 470,000 to 690,000 elephants in Africa. It's surprising to myself to think of that particular number, but there is an estimated, it's thought there may have been as many as 3 to 4 million elephants in Africa between 1930 and 1940. So So the numbers have gone down drastically, but it's a lot better than rhinos. And an elephant database has been doing research and trying to count elephants, and it's elephantdatabase.org is their website. But in 2002, they predicted 433,999 elephants in Africa from all the data they've collected. And that has gone down from 472,134 in 2007. Used as an aphrodisiac, can make them look younger in a cream form sometimes, or showing off wealth. I talked to the head of anti-poaching in Karika, and he said today some people simply grind up rhino horn and snort it like it's cocaine as a status of wealth, which is it's really angry. Rhino horn on the Chinese black market is now worth 5 times more than gold. A kilogram of rhino horn can be estimated to be worth about $600,000. And that's why people will even go for it if it's at a small amount of horn cut down, if they're really desperate. There have been stories, as I've heard from Frank, the head of anti-poaching at Karika, that a Vietnamese diplomat at one point used his diplomatic immunity to bring rhino horn from the Vietnamese embassy back to Vietnam. Another case he mentioned to me quickly was a woman created a market for elephant ivory at one point in Africa, and is responsible for the deaths of over 100,000 elephants because of her creating that market. As I've said, in Kruger National Park, about 3 rhinos a day are being killed by poachers, and it is with the continued rate that there could be no more rhinos in 10 years. And 90% of the rhinos living today are mostly found in South Africa, and 95% of those are in national parks where most of the killing is being done, and 5% are in private reserves where there still is poaching, but it's not as prominent. Poachers have a vast upper hand on everyone. They have advanced equipment like Generation 3 night optics, which are military grade. Private reserves can't even get their hands on Generation 3. Most private reserves and parks can usually only get Generation 2 or 1 night vision. So they somehow have connections to be able to have advanced equipment. Most of the connections for poachers are in parks or reserves, boat ports, airports, and through government. And that's how they're able to get the animal products easily and to the black market in Asia. Regular citizens and people do the dirty work for these CEOs and executives. And the high-end businessmen, CEOs, and wealthy in Asia are typically the masterminds behind the entire poaching process. Poaching helps fuel terrorist organizations, mobs, drug cartels, and pirates. A lot of pirates in Somalia get funding for their business and what they do through poaching. It is essentially a very large organized crime that is tough to bring down, and it's very complex to see all the angles that make up poaching. Some of the possible solutions that I've talked with Frank at Karika for the anti-poaching is rhino farming. Unfortunately, with the time that rhinos have, it's not possible to do rhino poaching because of the growth rate of the horns. It would take way too long. Breeding programs have been the most successful. In fact, the biggest success story has been through a breeding program that brought back the numbers of black rhino. Donations to anti-poaching are also what can help with stopping poaching. Anti-poaching is the lowest budget for most national parks and game reserves, so it's where the money goes to last. One way to help with stopping poaching is to help fund the anti-poaching units. And through wildlife organizations, another way to help with poaching is to support it through those. The number one solution to poaching and to be able to stop all of this is education and word of mouth. It's as simple as that. Most people in Asia have never seen a photo of a rhino without its horn, or what happens to an elephant when half of its face is completely completely cut off just to obtain the ivory. No one really knows what they're buying over there. They just know it's rhino cream or some kind of rhino horn product that could possibly, they think, help cure cancer, but that isn't the case. Those are some of the lies associated when people simply accept poaching. Awareness is another thing. So simply like a talk today about that and donating to the particular causes. So this actually was sent to me in an email, which is exactly what I'm talking about and how to help stop poaching. Elephant, ivory, and rhino horn campaigns. The Duke of Cambridge, David Beckingham, top actresses, Li Bling in China, actor and director Jiang Wen, and also other celebrities are now joining the fight to try and stop poaching. And that's exactly what should be done over there to try and stop it in Asia, is education and word of mouth. This is Wild Aid. This is one of the organizations that helps stop with poaching. So it's very good to be seeing that these steps are being taken with people who have the highest power for speaking out about it. And to end on a good note, this is one photo that I took of one of the young lions at Kirka. So thank you. If you have any questions, comments. If you have any questions about possible donation places, you can always email me. It's dbrownelements@gmail.com. Thanks again.